Hey Astra, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? And am I audible? Is my voice clear?
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you precisely. It's pristine, clear, no worries.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay. So how's everything going? I know it's barely just morning for you, but still, how's it going?
Today's been good so far. Sometimes I do wake up at this time anyway. Plus, it's really good to wake up like right early in the morning so you can finish everything early. So I don't mind it at all. I'm pretty good so far. And thank you
That's
so much for also inviting me to the podcast too.
Yeah, it's my pleasure you're here. I'm looking forward to an amazing time discussing choices. And just you guys know Astra. So first of all, let's talk about her YouTube. Let me just introduce her. Like she does this amazing playthroughs on YouTube, and I think she started from March, right?
Yeah, I started at the very end
Yeah,
of March actually,
March.
like
Yeah,
March 28th.
yeah.
When I first started, I was only doing about like one video upload a week, but then as time went on, I added more and more uploads. So now I'm basically at 5 videos a week.
Yeah, and she has playthroughs of almost all the interesting books and all the current books, VIP and non-VIP books she does. So and also other books. I think I saw a lot of other books that released in the past. You have the playthroughs. So and the interesting thing about her, she goes with like if you are looking for a playthrough where you wanted to choose a female main character and female MC. So she's definitely your go-to YouTube playthrough channel because you can find it here. That's I really don't see much playthroughs like that. Mostly it's just so that particular pattern. I really enjoy that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, I really do appreciate that. I started playing choices a lot last year, and
Wow.
many times I noticed that I couldn't really find a playthrough for a particular chapter that I was looking for, and especially the love interest that I was interested in. I couldn't really find that video. So that's why I pretty much decided to start the channel this year, was because I wanted to be able to, upload my playthroughs for people who are really interested in the female love interests.
Yeah, I know that. And even like the main character matters because maybe you missed a part and you want to sort of see what happened. Maybe you skipped a diamond scene and you are watching someone's playthrough who has a different main character than your main character. Then it's not so much fun. But if you see, like for instance, who has a female main character and is romancing, for instance, a female love interest. So if they go to your playthrough, like they'll feel like, oh wow, look, it's my playthrough. Like that's what I chose. So they feel more connected and it's more fun because I personally felt whenever like I see a playthrough I'm watching, it's matching with what I would usually go with. Then I feel like, oh wow, it's like I'm playing, even though I didn't take the diamond scene, but sort of I am living through the diamond scene vicariously through your playthrough. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, exactly. I really do appreciate the playthroughs, even ones that are uploaded by other choices YouTubers, because sometimes you forget what happened in a chapter. So it's just convenient to go back and just look at everything that happened. Even like for a playthrough, especially if there's like points that you're supposed to earn for the chapter, it helps a lot with that too.
Yeah.
And the point you mentioned about seeing a playthrough that matches one that you would have chosen yourself,
Yeah.
that matters a lot too. That's why in the past, there seemed to be some playthroughs that were lacking of main characters of color, that were
Exactly.
also, romancing female love interest.
Mm. Yeah. That's right. So that's what Astra does. She brings the variety. She brings the diversity to the table because I think there are very few playthroughs who or YouTubers who go with first of all a female main character and a female love interest and definitely with a female MC of color. So if someone has their playthrough of a female MC of color and they're going for a female love interest, then I don't think there are much playthroughs of that. But I think you are one of those playthroughs that people can connect who would have gone for a female MC of color and who would have romanced a female love interest. Like I said, it's really a unique playthrough, I would say, that you put on YouTube.
Thanks. I really appreciate that compliment. I'm happy to do this because I know just how hard it is to find it. So it was just something that I felt passionate about because it was a bit hard to find representation for the type of romance I was looking for. So that was mainly the reason why I started it.
That's good. And also, if you don't know about her Instagram, she also does this amazing edits on Instagram. And I have personally seen some of the edits, specifically Charlie Smith, the quartermaster. I mean, those edits are, oh my God. I mean, you literally brought her to life. Like, that was super awesome. So I would be linking her YouTube channel and her Instagram in the description and the comments below. Check out her work. You would not regret. I mean, those are super awesome. Those edits, they're super awesome.
Charlie is my number one favorite love interest. I think I probably have the most edits of her, and several others as well. Like sometimes I'll edit them multiple times in a row, but she's definitely my number one.
Yeah, definitely. I understand why she would be, because her character was really charming. And last year, I think she was a love interest I enjoyed the most in choices of the newly releasing books. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So from last year, you basically she stood out to you the most out of all the other interests.
Yeah, because of all the books that released last year, she was definitely the top love interest for me. Because I think what else? I mean, what else we had last year? Yeah, we had Blades of Light and Shadow. Did you read that?
Yes, I did actually. I am starting a replay right now, so I'm going to be doing that just because I kind of forgot what happened in the story. But yes, I did. I enjoyed it, but I do remember like the basics of everything.
Yeah, I kind of forgot it. I need to, sort of refill my memory before the book to comes out. That is set to release next year at some point, maybe earlier next year, like February, March. So yeah, I need to get onto that.
Yeah, I'm wondering like what time next year. I'm very excited for it though because it's definitely a book you could tell that there was a lot of effort put into, and like the RPG system of that book is actually really really cool. It reminds me a little bit of The Crown and the Flame. I just really really enjoyed it. Especially like other fantasy and adventure books. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think because this Blade of Light and Shadow, it doesn't feel like a book. It actually feels like a real RPG game with the skill set you have and how the game is designed. How they work. It's a story, but also it's like a real RPG game you're playing. I really love that about, and also the diversity with the race and how you can choose. That's also something new choices did that they never have done even before. That was a good project.
Yeah, that's another good point you just brought up. Like they had like the elf option, the human race option, and then I believe the other one was the same one that Imtura is. I don't remember what it's called.
Arc? No, not Arc. That was I'm forgetting. Yeah,
I thought it was Arc.
yeah, something's close to that. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, go on.
So, yeah, for that series, it would be really nice to see, Pixelberry releasing other books that also have a similar format, where it feels more like an RPG game, where you can develop skills, even like collect weapons. I know there's a VIP book that's a little bit similar to that, but that one hasn't been released to the general public yet. But I would love to see more books like that, especially like adventure books in general, especially ones where you can travel. That's why I love Blades of Light and Shadow, because you got to see so many nice backgrounds and the whole team, they basically went from place to place together. Like it was this big journey. I loved that.
Yeah, it was good. It was really awesome. I mean, last year it released also at a time. Both it and Distant Shores were like we were stuck at home and the world was upside down. And but it was a relief. It's sort of comfort book. Both of the books, Blade of Light and Shadow and Distant Shores, and the way it was written, like you said, the RPG, the action, the drama, and it's just like Crown and Flame, but even grander, even more stuff happening, and just how awesome it was. It was like I'm actually fighting some enemy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the book 2 now, and I need to catch up on book 1 again.
Yeah, exactly. And that was basically why I restarted the book, because I want to go through everything again and probably change my love interest this time. Um, I'll probably be playing. Before it was Impura, but I'm probably gonna choose Nia this time.
Yeah, both of them are good. All the 4 love interests are good. They're nice characters, everyone. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. I think Mal's really funny. Like I appreciate all of them. They're all different and wonderful in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like. We will talk more about this later. But do you find Mel like similar to our captain in Shipwreck because they have like the dry humor and stuff?
That's a good question. I do see the dry humor part. I do see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I think of I think of Manu as very different. Like Manu to me is like a character that has all their walls up and they don't want to get too vulnerable at all. So they started off very difficult with the main character. But then Mal, I think Mal is a bit more open, but yes, the dry humor part definitely does seem very similar.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So we already talking about like being like talking about the points and schedule. We're already taking a detour, but like let me let me just get to the points I wrote down. I would love to know,
Sure.
like I would like I like to listen to everyone's experience and how they started on choices. Like I have already found out like there are interesting stories like how one discovered about choices and how they felt about it. So how did you get into choices? Like when was the first time, like how did you know about it and then first started playing, and your experience, how did you like your first book maybe, and how did you even feel about it? So just talk me through that.
Yeah, sure. It kind of does involve me starting and stopping. It's a little bit of it's not like very conventional how I started, but basically what happened was when I was near the end of my time in college, I believe 2017 to 2018, I downloaded the Choices app for the first time ever, and I remember liking it. I thought it was a really cute app. I don't believe there weren't as many stories that were released on the app at that time. I do believe when I first played it, I don't remember exactly what was happening in the chapters that I played because I kind of like I installed it on my phone, but then I didn't really go back to it for a long time. But I believe the first two stories I read were The Freshman and Bloodbound. I remember really liking Bloodbound a lot because, in general, I just love vampire stories anyway. So that one, I believe I actually played the most chapters from, but I didn't actually even finish any book when I downloaded it for the first time. So I believe it had to do mostly because I really wanted to be able to get the premium choices, but because like I was in college and I had to like take care of other things, I wasn't able to get there yet. So I'm glad that at least like fast forward a few years later, last year in late February, early March, I downloaded the app again for the first time, like for the first time in a long time. So how I started like in 2018, like I didn't even have I wasn't even playing it for a very long time. So after I checked out Bloodbound, I kind of like uninstalled it and didn't really go back, which is crazy because now I'm like completely in love with this app like today. So fast forward a few years later, um, it was about that time where everything was escalating with the global health crisis. I ended up having to, transition from working outside of home to being home. So I pretty much had a lot more free time, and that was kind of what started my journey for looking for story-based books or story-based apps. It was something I was really looking for, like an interactive story experience, and I was just doing a lot of random searching through the app store, and I came across like other apps, so I downloaded a bunch of them and went through all of them, and unfortunately some of them didn't really have a lot of female love interest, so it was like a trial and error process for me. But I saw choices and I was like, oh, I remember this app from a while ago, and I just pretty much stuck to it from then. And because I came back to it, I went back to Bloodbound, and obviously I started from the very beginning because my other choices account is probably missing. I don't even know where it is, but I have like my choices account. Like I have no idea where that is, but so I started this one from the very beginning, and I actually kind of remember the first few chapters. I was like, okay, like I played this many years ago. I was happy to go back to it, and I played all through all of the three books and even the holiday book too. And I absolutely loved that series. That's the one that I started on.
And that's why Camila is your favorite love interest, right?
Yes, definitely. Camila is one of my number one favorites. She's amazing. In the first
Absolutely.
book, she wasn't even really romanceable, but at least later on, we were able to have that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, actually, your experience is kind of similar to my experience, but the difference is the timeline. I mean, the time difference is just a little less. Your 2 years, mine is like 4 months or something. So after I completed my school, then I was like on this vacation. I didn't have anything to do, so I was just going to these weird apps, trying to find like people to talk to and stuff, and games. I mean, I installed like weird apps at that time, and then I came across the story game app. I remember I first played this Wizard Love Story. So I first like, wow, like you tap through this, you get to have your main character. I kind of liked it, and then it was just one story whole app. Then after I finished it, I started looking for other apps, and I came across some apps, but they were not really good, and most of them, like you said, didn't have a female love interest or a male main character. So then I discovered choices. I was playing Big Sky Country first, and I was like a little this, but then I felt like, oh, it's not. I mean, not what I wanted. Then also like some stuff was going on with my like college admission and stuff, so I put it on hold. Then after 3 or 4 months, I played that first book again. I mean, the app, the Wizard Love Story, and then I felt like, let's see if I have any other apps like this. Again, I went to episode, I went to other apps, but I was not quite satisfied. And then I came into choices again. I was like, let's give it a try. And this asked me at that time, 2019, they had like a Royal Romance and some other books you can start with. So I chose young adults, I think, and they took me to high school story. And I first saw Emma's character, and I was like, I'm going to love this book. Then I remember Brian and everyone. And since then, I think I played high school story. And it was an interesting experience because I had played some interactive story games before that, but it was not quite like choices because the music and everything compared. I was like waiting, okay, when I'm gonna get my keys, when I'm going to get diamonds, and then after that I played America's Most Eligible, and then I got hooked up on hooked up to that, and then I started October 2019, and then I kept playing books. I mean, I have played every gender customizable book in choices, and even some of the gender locked books, like as many as I could have played in this timeline. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this later about the impacts. But I think in choices, I also played Dream Zone. I have tried other apps like Lovesick and stuff, but I have not gotten from them exactly what I get in choices because I think we'll talk about this, but just choices is something really special. I'm really glad I discovered it the way I did.
Me too. There's just something that stands out about choices. Similar to like what you were saying, I had that trial and error process where I downloaded a bunch of visual novel apps. I don't know what it was exactly, but I was kind of in the mood for that type of app. Because I think many years ago, also, it was that time where I also tried out Bloodbound for the first time. I also installed Episode, and I think Episode's a great, solid app, but there was just some things that were missing. So I ended up I kind of just like left it, and then I saw an app, a very similar one, but it was like a vampire love story based app, but it was only male love interest. So it felt kind of limited at that time, but I'm really glad that I just rediscovered like my interest in these types of apps and the interactive stories, like last year in 2020 with choices. I feel like we have a lot more options, especially with the main character customization. They even have a lot of gender of choice books because I'm sure you
A lot
probably
of
saw, but with a lot of the other really popular interactive story books, they don't really have a male main character. So
nope.
choices is really really good in that part.
And some of them even don't have gender, like option to romance females. Like it's something like, okay, you see your boss who is a male or something. So I'm glad that they give this. I mean, in every single book of choices since they started out, they had like the choose, like you can choose your lover's gender. So that's something I really appreciated about choices.
Me too. I'm very very thankful for the app because you know that time last year when I first started playing choices again, I had a couple of other interactive story games that I was playing regularly, but they weren't very inclusive. So at that time, I was getting kind of a little bit annoyed, and I was kind of looking elsewhere. And once I finally like started going on the Choices app, I realized that like there's a lot more opportunities for me here. So that was pretty much why it stuck with me. And I really love the Choices music, the background music, and the character design is absolutely beautiful. Sometimes with other apps, they kind of reuse the character faces a little bit too much, so it doesn't feel as interactive. But I like with Choices how, with their love interest especially, they like to make them unique, and
Oh
they don't reuse as they don't reuse them as much as they might reuse a side character.
yeah, they never reuse their antagonists and love interests. That's for sure. That's what makes every book so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I believe they've done that, but only in very, very small instances, or probably only in one or two books. But it wasn't like a very significant thing, because the good thing is they do generally make their love interest look different each time. So that's a very important thing to do because there are other really good interactive story apps, but unfortunately, some of them reuse the same love interest, but they'll just change like a hairstyle or something, and it feels kind of weird to see that because you saw them in another story. So that's why I really appreciate Choices because they put a lot of effort into the art that they do and the character design, even like the background art too, like everything. Choices really, really wins when it comes to art.
Yeah, they do. I mean, when we're talking about this, like I played Big Sky Country. I think the music in Big Sky Country is just super. I was totally like the background picture, the artwork they have, and the music. Like if you combine both of these, you can even get transported to that place in your mind. Because I used to play Big Sky Country, and I would feel like, wow, like, the greenery behind, like I'm literally sitting in Montana. It would feel like, because the way the music is, or if you have played With Every Heartbeat, I mean the music will make you feel things that you don't even know how to feel, or maybe you have never experienced before. So they're really good with music. And if you talk about the Nanny Affair, the music has they have it would automatically like, okay, I'm reading a book that has a lot of steamy moments, or it's like sparks are flying. So the music and the background and artwork, like the art shots they have, it's just, I don't think in any other app they have this kind of thing. This is hands down the like classic choices thing.
Definitely. Choices is top notch in a lot of those categories with art and especially the music. I feel like a lot of people I've talked to, Choices fans also love the background music so much. Some of them definitely like certain book soundtracks more than others, and some songs are more popular than others. But generally, these tracks are very, very, very well done, and a lot of people will go on YouTube to listen to them. And I find myself doing that sometimes too. But I did not actually finish Big Sky Country, or I'm not sure if I said it right. Is it Big Country Sky or
Yeah, yeah,
Big Sky
BSC.
Country?
Yeah, yeah, Big Sky
Uh,
Country.
so I actually did start it, but I think I only have like 2 or 3 chapters in, and I think it's a pretty solid story so far. I really like the atmosphere of the book. I haven't really played like other stories where you're in a country type of environment, other than like Wolf Bride right now. So that I really did appreciate. So I definitely do plan on revisiting that story this year. And what was something about that book that you liked the most? I know you mentioned that the the background music helped transform like your experience and made you feel like you were in the place that the main character was in. I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, that book, I think you said 2 or 3 chapters in, so I don't know how much you have, about Big Sky Country, but without spoiling much for you, I would say, like, the story plots they have, like the small town, everything, like the fair and like the nitty gritty, I just liked it. And also how it's about a certain character called Dallas. So there's a story behind him and how they go on about him in book 1 and book 2. I really like that. And that's again a plot about equality and like how choices they have already done a good job. And it was way before, things started happening, and or maybe, they even from that time, sort of wrote, or they included diversity, like the color, the problems in society, or like the systemic racism and stuff, and equality. It's even back in 2017 or 18. So at that time, they also focused on it, and they had a solid storyline for Dallas, which I really liked about that book particularly.
Wow, I have a lot of respect for that. Are you saying that? I know. I remember seeing Dallas. He seemed a bit of a shut off character who kind of brushed you off at the very beginning. So
Yeah.
they actually talked about like his experience as a black man. Was that something that was part of the actual book?
Yeah, exactly. Like why he was distant. Like in book 1, you get him, like he had a background story, like why he was like that. And so in book 1, you help him partially, and in book 2, you totally like uproot the problem. So I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it was really interesting how they did that. And I generally don't spend diamonds, but I had to spend diamonds for Dallas to like, because it was even emotionally, attracting, because you had to help him, and it was really well done.
Everything that you just told me about that book makes me want to play it this time because I really, really do care about that type of social issue a lot. So hearing that this book includes that, I didn't even think it would have actually even had that type of storyline. So I really do appreciate how Choices included that because it is really important to talk about the experiences that some people of color have. Because some people may not really take it seriously when we talk about what we've experienced in our lives. So I really do appreciate how Choices included that and that they weren't scared to include that. So because of that alone, that gives me like the motivation to read that book.
Yeah, it does talk about the inequality, like if just because your skin color, how it can easily be framed and if you were of a different skin color, you wouldn't have gotten into that mess. So that thing, and even when I say, because a lot of people would think, because when the idea became mainstream last year on June or July, people would do it in an app store, so that would have made it like, okay, it's mainstream and you were doing it. But the fact that Choices didn't do it when it was mainstream, but they even started doing it way before, I'm not saying it didn't exist at that time, but it was not mainstream at that time, but Choices still focus on that, and it had a perfect storyline. So it just goes on to show like how Choices do care about the diversity and all its folks, and it's just you gotta respect it. I liked it personally, and I know you will like it.
That makes me very happy to hear. I did not even expect that from this book. I started like the first few chapters, and I thought it was pretty cute. I liked the background music. It's like the country type of music. That's not something I'm very used to, but it was very charming to me. So because you're telling me that there's this very important storyline about social issues, that makes me inclined to want to read the book, because that type of stuff is very important to me. I love to see that being brought up in books. I know that a lot of people who play, a lot of the player base don't really want to see very serious issues, but then some of us also like to see those. So that's why it's good that they have the book variety anyway. But that's something that I do believe is very important. There was an element of that was also shown in the My First Two Love book as well. Was that a book that you played?
Oh, I loved it. I loved The Boy Next Door. I mean, that music when they played it, when main character and the boy next door got together. I think it was just because the music and stuff, the chemistry. I loved the book. I loved all the characters and how main character's father's character they developed it. Oh my god! I mean, that's gotta be my one of the favorite books of last year.
Exactly. I actually like happen to love that book. I believe it was like 100 chapters or something, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was like 100, I believe, and each of the chapters were very short.
very
I
short.
do enjoy that type of format because sometimes you don't want to like spend more than 30 minutes on a chapter. So this type of format to me worked very well. And I think it's great for like a high school type of environment too, because
I love it. Yeah.
like you don't have to spend as much time on the chapter, but it's still just as dramatic, and they leave you on like a cliffhanger, and then you're ready for the next one. I think it was great. I loved all of the love interests in the story as well,
All three of them.
especially Ava. Especially
Uh,
Ava, like,
best
she
friend.
stood
Yeah.
out a lot.
Yeah, I loved her too. I mean, it was really hard choice because when they ask her main character to choose one of them and just decline other two, it was so hard to tell them. Like I had to tell no to Ava and Noah. It was really hard, because at that point it was like all of them were part of our main character.
Yeah, I felt like the main character developed a really strong bond with all three of them, and I appreciate all of them dearly. And I also remember that scene too, where I turned down Mason and Noah. I felt a little bad for them, but I still do appreciate them as characters themselves. Like I think they're amazing. I know a lot of people went for Noah because they thought that Mason was annoying at the beginning, but I don't think Mason's an annoying character. I think he was a bit misunderstood because he's still just as great as the others.
I know. And specifically, I think we're going to talk about Wolf Pride in a moment. But choices do this. I mean, they just don't put a character. And I think it should be. I mean, yeah, even if like some characters are not perfect at the end, at the start, but that's the motto. Like in life, also, no one's perfect, but everyone is trying to be their best version of themselves. Like a better version of themselves at least. So the characters, like our main character's father, he was like a really bad parent, but slowly he develops himself into a good parent. And the same way, I think both Noah and Mason had their own problems. I mean, both of them loved our main character, but they had their own problems with each other and how they were showing love. but we later got to know as we went deeper into the book that there was a history between Noah and Mason, and that would explain why they did as to what they did, and then everything makes sense. So I would say if a character at first is not really an ideal character, and if it's a love interest, then I think it's a good sign that they're developing into a good version of themselves. And I really liked all the characters there because they developed. And also, you would understand it like how Ava and main character's relation was done, like from Ava liking boys to liking girls, and same for the main character. It was just interesting how they did it. I think this book is really underappreciated because this deals with a lot of issues, not just one or the other.
The sensitive topics in this book, I'm really glad they included it. It's a lot more mature than I thought it would be because at one point it involved, I believe, a weapon and some violence. So, and
Police brutality.
Yeah, police brutality. Like, these are just very, very heavy topics, but I am glad that they chose to include this. But either way, there was an option where you get to skip that scene if it was triggering to you. And I think it's great that Choices included that too. Anyway, I chose to experience the scene, and it was very sad, but a powerful thing to see that this is how some people are treated, or this is how some people are more likely to be treated, and how it negatively impacts them. There's just a lot of mature themes in this book.
Yeah.
And I know that both Mason and Noah, they're more similar, even though they had issues with each other, they're more similar than they think that they were. And I'm glad that they both had like their redemption moments,
That was really well done.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the dad, though, because he was like really annoying, like for most of the book. But then he finally softened and started becoming more like relatable to the main character.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful character development too. I was very happy at that moment. Like I was like, "Yep, you're no longer the bad guy here."
Yeah. I loved it because like a lot of characters are good dad from the beginning, but even a person who realizes his mistake and corrects it, it's just there couldn't be anything better than that. And that's all. Like we're talking about learning from choices. You can learn just how he changes. So I think this is really interesting, and not a lot of app store does this kind of things. They just mainly focus on the romance part or some steamy scenes, and then they're just done with it. But there's more to a story. They just tell you stories. They tell you incidents that are happening outside in the world, but also that are happening inside you or inside your home. So it's just an amazing book. It has 100 chapters, but I would say it has content worth of 100 books if you look at it that way.
And it's definitely worth it to read too, because even though you may be put off by the number of chapters, each chapter is pretty quick anyway. So for me, it was still enjoyable, and I personally did not care that it was 100 chapters. I pretty much just played it, was waiting for each chapter, and I was excited for the next release. I'm very happy that I played through it. I know the reception may have not been good for the series at some point, maybe because of the length of the chapters. I'm not really sure what the general reception was, but I do believe that there are also a lot of other fans who appreciated that the social issues were included in this book. That's something that I thought was very important, and it didn't even feel like the book was that long to me either.
No, because I was playing daily. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get daily chapters. That's something I love. I wish that Choices can have another
releasing book.
Yeah, like something like that too, that has like more than 50 chapters or whatever, and releasing it every day. I love that because I don't know if you remember that time period last year, but it was fun to look forward to a new chapter every day. I loved that feeling.
Yeah, I know. It used to release for me at 10:30 p.m. at night, and it was so short that I would just read it for 5 minutes to 6 minutes, and I would wait every day. And when a book releases every week, you kind of forget what happened in the last chapter in details. But for every day, it's like, oh, like today I have a new book. So it was an experiment Choices did, and it was successful, I would say, because this was a good experiment. Like if you read it when it released, you wouldn't feel like, oh, it was 100 chapters, because you read every day, so it would feel short for you. At least it feels to me.
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised that it was up to 100 chapters because to me it didn't feel like a very long story.
Exactly.
And the fact that you got to look forward to a new chapter every day, that was something exciting for me, like whenever it was released. I personally just felt so happy about that because I loved the story anyway, and I was looking forward to seeing how Mason, Noah, and Ava evolve. And I know that Ava had her issues at the beginning too, and I started to actually care about these characters. I know that some people were also very annoyed with the main character because she wasn't very decisive with who she liked, but that was basically kind of built into the story anyway,
Yeah.
especially
That
because she was
happens.
exploring,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was exploring her sexuality, and that was something that
Exactly.
was,
Yeah. They also
yeah,
said at the beginning of the book that like exploring through sexuality and romance and everything. So,
yes, and that's a very important point because that is also a warning that was added at the very beginning of Wolf Bride too. So I know some people may have been surprised that like some people who are not part of the LGBT community may have been a bit surprised by some of the content, but the book did warn you that the character is not or that the character is exploring. So at least you know that they tell us this from the very beginning because that's important.
but I think my two first steps was worth it. And talking about Wolf Pride, I'm so far 5 chapters into this book. Yeah, but I'm so far liking it because the way it's written. I kind of feel like it's similar to my two first love, at least in terms of like a Noah Mason thing we have with Bastine and Morgan. Yeah, so that way I would say it's kind of similar.
Yeah, you mean like the back and forth fighting and everything,
Yeah, but
and all that
yeah,
tension.
yeah, animosity between the two love interests.
There is way too much. In that book, I think they thrive. They thrive off of just how angry Morgan and Bastion are at each other, and I'm not even mad about it. I think it's interesting to see, but like
Of
they're
course
just
it is.
both very, very angry at each other all the time,
Yeah.
and
But
it,
they
it,
will
it
come
does
around.
kind of remind me of that.
Yeah, but just like in my two first serves, I think it's my prediction that I think they will come around because I did you play chapter 5, or did you play the whole book?
Wolf Ride?
Yeah, Old Pride.
Yes, I did actually because I purchased VIP pretty early on. I believe I started it last year. I can't be 100% sure, but I think it was sometime last year, like near the end of the year, because that was when Wolf Ride was first released ever to the VIP crowd. So I basically like played it week to week, and my perception of it changed now that I'm doing a replay. But I think that your predictions are very solid, and it makes sense for the type of story it is, especially because you know how you have those two characters that are fighting and are very angry with each other. It's always heartwarming to see that eventually that it gets better and that they're not as angry or fighting all the time, and that they learn to accept each other.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's something that I also love to see in these books because it was annoying to see Mason and Noah, biting back each time. And right now, currently, we're seeing that with Bastion and Morgan. But I think your prediction it sounds like something that's logical for this type of story.
Yeah, and I kind of like it because, like I said, like if you look, Morgan, she has her flaws. Bastien, he has his little here and there flaws. Like both of them has not like some severe flaws, but some here and there flaws. But we'll come and meet in the middle with both of them because I think as of chapter 5, Morgan working with this SCP Solar Energy Production, I think, and this energy no project, the Solar Energy Project. So this guy is up to no good. So I think he's going to be the antagonist, and Morgan is working for them. And because Morgan doesn't know, because sometimes a character it's just like, did you read that book, Distant, no, not Distant Shores, the environment book, Rising Tides?
Yes, I did. I read
Yeah,
all of it. It was a pretty short book. It was like
yeah,
12 chapters, I think.
12
I
chapters, yeah.
enjoyed it. I really do respect the fact that Choices dedicated a whole book to an actual issue that we need to pay attention to more. I love that, and I'm wondering if they're going to be doing this for different type of issues. Like maybe they could even do like a mental health issue book one day, and that would be a bit sensitive. I know there's probably going to be a lot of hesitation if that was to be a thing, but maybe even like other types of issues instead too. Like maybe even a book about bullying. Um, because when I saw that book, they focused on like environmental issues. It made me like think of like, they could do so many other types of books or single issue books, and I think that would be important. And I think it would be a really, really cool opportunity for people to learn more. Because I was happy to learn stuff about,
Exactly.
environmental friendly policies and even, upgrades that you can make to your community. That was something that I enjoyed seeing. So I spent like all of the diamond choices for that book anyway too, just because I really appreciated what they were trying to do.
Clean your environment, yeah. I mean, I say always one thing, like when this book released, I said it, okay, like when you're reading a zombie book, and at that time the zombie book was not out, but I said it, like, if you're reading a zombie book, then you like, oh wow, if there were a zombie apocalypse, I would have just been like the main character and I would have saved the world. So that's why, like, if you're reading a book, you idealize after the main character and try to face that problem or wish that problem was in the real life. Similarly, if you're reading a book about environment, then it would idealize you or inspire you, and you will feel like, okay, I'm like just like gonna be like just like the main character. I'm gonna idealize myself after the main character, and I'm gonna tackle this issue. So it's just even if you were not aware or inspired to do good, or just take care of the environment, these books will just inspire you, induce you to sort of take part in activism and environment, as to protect our environment. Like it could be planting trees or just saving energy. I think this can go really a long way, just these books or games they release.
I agree with that. And there's different levels of what you can do to, help alleviate the problem.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think one of the most basic ones is bringing awareness to it, so that you could tell others about it and spreading information. And that's basically what this book was doing. The awareness part is a very good first step, and it's very important. So that was especially why I really, really do appreciate this book, and I would love to see more single issue books that are awareness based, and especially like educational as well, because I know some people probably hear the word educational and they think it's boring, but it's not boring. It's still a choices book. I love choices. I love what Pixelberry releases. Even if it's not like the best book in the world, I'm still happy to read it.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I know. I mean, I enjoyed all the books by choices. And speaking of issues, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I think they have, a work in progress book that they're going to release next year, and it's about, I think, will focus on like the Black lives and this whole thing, like the issues. I think they're going to tackle that issue and release a book next year. They don't have a name yet. They don't have a plot yet, but they did say, someone brought that to my attention, but I can't quite confirm it. But yeah, I think they have it under work.
I know what you're talking about too. I also haven't been able to find the book title anywhere, so it's definitely still like in the works. Maybe next year we're gonna get like a sneak peek. That's just my guess. I'm not really sure, But I also heard that there was going to be a book that focuses on issues that Black people face, or like a Black led past. Like, I'm not sure what exactly it's going to be, but I am very curious about that. That's something that I definitely want to learn more about. And if that gets released next year, I am definitely going to be playing that book.
Oh, I would love that. I think we'll learn more in the December Insider, or they always release year-end blog post or New Year Insider. So you gotta keep an eye out for those because they usually drop bombshell in those. So yeah, let's see.
Yeah, you're right. Last year, like when I was really getting into choices,
Oh,
I
yeah.
really went in and I was just like, I was telling myself I'm going to read as much books as possible because I have a lot of free time and I might as well. And I already love the app, but I did not actually subscribe to their newsletters, like the email ones. So, later on I started doing that, and I like how they have polls within like their email. Like they'll ask you a question and you get to choose like which one's your favorite. I'm wondering if they do that like so they can incorporate something like into a future story, or maybe I'm not really sure what they're gonna do with that, but I think that's a really fun interactive part for the community. So I'm
Yeah,
really glad that
interactive.
I subscribed to it.
I totally agree with that. I completely agree with that. And also, just double down on this. I think you said earlier, like the social issues, like this, issues with like what happens with people of color, or like just the issue of equal marriage, or like the gender equality, or just in the transgender and LGBT, all these things. I think, like you said, a lot of players can say like, wait, this is too much. You are going into like we just play choices to just chill, just to get away from the reality. So we don't want you guys to shove the reality down our throat. Now, choices. I don't know if you have noticed it, but you read it lives in the woods, and it lives mainly in the woods, right?
Yes, I read both of them. Those books are very intense,
Yes.
incredibly intense.
Yeah. So did you notice that even though what is it lives about? It's about ghost, right? It's about supernatural book, horror book. But even though it's a horror book, in both the books, the ghost is not the main part there. Because even if it's there, it's just one of the antagonists. Because in the first book, you have bullying, you have issues, and also with King Kang, he's like the transgender, so issues around that, like how he gets, and he was also an Asian, so he doesn't get appreciated in the basketball team, and he gets called some racial slurs, and also about his sexuality. And we also see like of course Lucas didn't mean it, but cause like, hey, she's gonna be with us, and Andy says no, he. What'd you say? Like I said he. So it's not choices didn't say like, hey, this is a scene, but they just, these are very sensitive things and deep things, but they just put it into a horror book, and in here and there they just slip in those. So even when they're planning those small dialogues, the small conversations that are not much of importance to the main plot, but they have their own importance. You know what I mean? Like that is like, who would expect to have those deep conversations there? And they don't just write. When they write, I don't think they get sloppy even for a second. I mean, they have very deep meaning and importance. Everything they write. So I was stunned. I didn't quite notice it when I first played it, but recently when I was replaying it, I noticed those facts. Like, wow, the first 5 chapters, it deals with. You don't even see a ghost. You see bullying. You see racism. You see sexism. You see those stuff, and and it's not on a you can't like point a finger to those like, hey, here I found it, because they just mix it within the plot with such artistic talent that it just blends into the main story, and the final product you have is like, wow, you got to appreciate in a horror book how they can make it look like you have it's dealing with other issues. I mean, I hope I made myself clear, but that was just exciting for me to read it.
No, you were pretty clear. I know what you were saying. You basically said that. Well, I'm gonna say it like in my version, and I'm
Yeah.
hopefully that also was what you meant as well. Especially with Andy King, like I don't really know what the transgender experience is, but I still really, really do care about the transgender community. I care about their rights and everything, but I don't know what their day-to-day experiences are. So I really did appreciate how we got to have like a scene with just Andy talking about the issues and the taunting that he was experiencing as a transgender man and not being appreciated. To me, this is not something I see in most media that I consume. I don't see this on TV very often. I don't see it in the books that I read. So the fact that Choices had that means a lot, and it's important to have that type of representation. Because even when it comes to representation for the LGBT community in general, it makes a lot of difference because some people don't even really know who they are until they see a character that they resonate with, and then it starts the journey of them questioning themselves and learning more about their identity and becoming the real you basically. But it was like a very personal sneak peek into an experience that Andy was having. And obviously, like, I had so much sympathy for him. There was a bully character named Ben, I believe, who was causing a lot of problems for him, or was, making him feel horrible. I don't know. It was just a very emotional experience for me to see. But I am glad that it was included because you get to see a sneak peek of something that's unfortunate that also isn't really being talked about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just I'm thinking like how delicate these are, and also you mentioned My Two First Loves and the police brutality. It also doesn't show you the real, police brutality experience if you haven't chosen the Noah's gender black. Yeah, you still have some, but with black you have like even in more depth experience there. And I don't know what if you have seen even noticed it in the Unexpected Heirs. I chose the John's gender as I think it was a brown color or something. Yeah, like the brown John. I chose him, and he was adopted by Francis's parents, right? So once it tells like how his experience about India, I think we're talking about just the other day, like, but also he tells like he's so grateful to Ashbournes, like Lady Ashbourne and Lord Ashbourne, because they took him in spite of his, despite of his, color or how he looks. And even he tells like how one of his friends Sita in India, who owned a tea firm, like he became a beggar because of the really cruel laws of this British emperor, and he was treated like that maybe because that guy had a skin color like John. So just because you choose a different John, you get these conversations. So definitely they put their time to write different conversations or surrounding race, sex, depending on what gender, no, not gender, what race of John you choose. I mean, yeah, with white John, you also have like deep conversations, not personal maybe, but still like he has experienced this. But if you choose a different John, like how it's not just, what's the word? Like it's not like a default conversation you would have with John, no matter what John you choose. But each John is unique, or each character for Noah, for that matter, in My Two First Loves, they're unique, and you're having a different set of conversations or different set of experience for each characters. And I sincerely do not see these in many books, but in Choices they do that. I mean, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, me too. That it was a really nice touch to see how the customizable version you chose had an impact, even with the main character too. There was a scene where it like depends on which main character you choose. There's this noble couple that have this very rude remark to tell you, basically like about your origins or whatever, and it was different based on which race your embassy was too. So I didn't even really know that about John because um, the John that I chose is not of color. But I also went to look for other playthroughs, and I do see that the subtle differences.
They're very subtle, but they're good for, like, if you're looking for those things when you're reading it and you're going deeper, then it will strike you. It's just like how delicate, how subtle they are with their books. It definitely surprises me.
Yeah, it's a nice touch to see this, and it's good for making the story feel more realistic, or as realistic as it can be as a fictional book. So it because if you were to just choose any type of version of John and no one remarks that he's a man of color, you're thinking, oh, in real life, this is probably not how he would be treated. So that's why, again, like what you said, it's very appreciated that they did make some subtle differences based on which John you had in your story.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. That's just so delicate. Um, so talking about, I think we're talking about